Good afternoon. We are live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is Monday, February 10th. This is a joint committee with the Transportation and Environment Committee and the Economic Development Committee to talk about the Purple Line and get an update on the business impacts that that project has caused along the many miles that the Purple Line is being built between Prince George's County border and downtown Bethesda. And earlier today, there was some breaking news that came into our inbox that the state of Maryland, the Department of Transportation, is now accepting grants for small businesses that are impacted by the Purple Line. I know we will hear more about that, but this is a very welcome development. And all of us on this joint committee know that businesses are struggling. And as we continue to invest and make this public commitment, we need to continue that commitment to our small businesses that are dealing with the depleted foot traffic and car traffic and business as well. And so look forward to this conversation. I'll turn it over to the co-chair if you have any opening comments.
Thank you so much. Again, my name is Natalie Fanny Gonzalez. I'm the chair of the Economic Development Committee. Very excited to see this session. This will be our second work session on this issue, and a great example of collaboration between the state and the county to ensure that we are investing in important infrastructure, but at the same time making sure our businesses thrive. With that, we can.
That's the purpose. So before we start, if we could maybe just go down the line so everyone can introduce themselves, and I'll turn it over to the Assistant Secretary to make opening comments if she's okay with that.
Sure. Good afternoon. Gene Smith, Manager of the Business Center. Montgomery County Business Center, I should say. So.
Stephanie Helsing, CEO and President of the Greater Silver Spring Chamber of Commerce.
Ray Biggs, Senior Project Director for the Purple Line with Maryland Transit Administration.
Good afternoon. Jacqueline Hartman, Assistant Secretary of Transportation Investments for the Maryland Department of Transportation.
Good afternoon. Jacob Newman, Regional Director for Silver Spring.
Thank you all for coming to Rockville. Assistant Secretary, I'll turn it over to you.
So thank you and good afternoon. Thank you for having us here today. We were just able to spend a little time with Transportation Environment Committee talking about the project generally and kind of the great work that is happening to progress the project and advance it forward. So we understand that this project has been a long time in the making, and we're excited that we are coming toward opening in late 2027. But we recognize the project has taken longer than expected, and that has impacts on both the communities and businesses who are there right in our active construction zone, basically, as we're trying to bring this important multimodal connection to Montgomery and Prince George's County. So one of the things that we've looked at is just how we can make an impact to ensure that the small businesses along the alignment who, at times are struggling to make through first from the impacts of COVID and now as well with the impacts of construction and how that can delay or change or, kind of depending on the day of the week, unfortunately, how that can impact their operations, just being able to get in and out of the parking lot or just being able to get people to their front door. So we recognize that. And, at the end of the day, the importance of the Purple Line is ensuring that those small businesses are able to stay open during this construction period so that they can really thrive once the project opens. And so to help with that, just this morning we announced something that has been in the making for a little while, but we were finally kind of ready to get it on the street today. So we are launching a $4 million small business assistance grant program. This is going to be a 4-year program, $1 million each year. And it is really focused on those small businesses, providing operating support, both in terms of any revenue losses that they are experiencing as a result of construction impacts, providing them the tools they need to be able to kind of get through this construction period so that really they can thrive on the other side of it. So the Small Business Grant Program is available to small businesses that are along the alignment, within 1/4 mile of the alignment. When we are making grant recommendations and award, we will be considering kind of where the heaviest construction impacts are, both in that immediately preceding 3 months, as well as kind of a 3-month look ahead. So in some ways, it will be both a proactive as well as a look back in terms of how those grant awards are made. So really trying to make sure that we are helping the businesses who are being most impacted at any time. And then as well, so the small businesses, we broadened the eligibility a little bit from the previous program, just to try to make sure that we are capturing other businesses as well. The small businesses can have up to 50 employees, can have gross sales of an average of up to $2 million, or if they are eligible under the state's small business enterprise program. So any of those 3 criteria, brings you into the program. We try to make it as broad as possible but also ensuring that we are delivering on those that we wanted to most hit home to. We will have grants of up to $50,000. Again, those grant awards will be based partially on construction impacts in that area at that time, as well as the gross sales of that business. So, trying to make it a little more focused on kind of the size of the business and what revenue impacts they are experiencing. This is really a building block off of the previous grant programs, and so we tried to take what we heard from the previous programs that Montgomery County and Prince George's County operated previously for the construction grant program. How could we build upon that and improve that program, make sure that we're hitting more people as well? So hopefully that is where we are with this grant program that just launched today. We will be accepting applications for approximately the next 6 weeks, and then make grant awards approximately within 30 days after that. So happy to answer any questions or talk through anything further.
Fantastic. Assistant Secretary, thank you for that update. Thank you for making the announcement today while you're here. That's why we do oversight, to make sure that everyone gets the support that they need, especially our businesses, and in what is a tough budget in Annapolis, not only this year, but over the next few years. Making a $1 million commitment over the next 4 years for a total of $4 million is important commitment. So please express our appreciation to your entire team, to Secretary Wiedefeld and the governor, of course. And you mentioned the local program that we've been operating for the last few years, so I'll turn it over to Mr. Smith to talk about the county's program.
Sure, thank you. Again, Gene Smith, manager of the Montgomery County Business Center. I apologize that one of my team members is out with the flu today, so Mr. Bigelow will be maybe watching at home. Hopefully he'll feel better. But again, I'm here to represent the team, and it's been a team effort. So I won't go into too much detail because the committees did review the earlier rounds. But when the Business Center started a couple years ago, the county had been administering a state grant through one of our partners, Latino Economic Development Center, and we did another round through the Business Center, mostly to save overhead. It saved almost $90,000 for those businesses. So, but what I'll highlight today is the county executive in last year's budget recommended $900,000, which the council put in. This was for highly strategic and targeted grants along Bonifant Street, which we just saw 30, 40 minutes ago in terms of kind of what's going on along that part of the corridor. And so the team with Mr. Daniel Caroma and Mr. Guzman Iloa went out and did extensive outreach along with Duressa, and they all combined speak English, Amharic, and Spanish. So we were able to cover a lot of our bases there for the businesses along that corridor. And we looked at, again, the county executive wanted to target Bonifant. And so that's where we started. Once we were done with that, we did advise the executive and the council that there was some money still remaining, and so given the impacts along Piney Branch, we did extend it to Piney Branch in August of 2024. And so right now we've got, let me get my notes up here, sorry. We've got 40 businesses that are receiving monthly stipends through the county's $900,000. Most of them are receiving up to $1,800 a month. They'll continue to receive that monthly through June of this year when the fiscal year runs out. And so the executive wanted to be able not to just give them a lump sum, but be able to target that over an extended period of time so they had a monthly cash flow given their impact on sales. 26 of those businesses are on Bonifant, 14 of them are on Piney Branch, and we anticipate we'll be using almost all $900,000 currently. So we hopefully will have a little bit more because we do check in with them quarterly to make sure that they are still in business, still in good standing with the state, and still in operations there. So that and currently we just did our quarterly check-in, and there's 1 and 2 that we're still working with. And I just want to highlight that given the need for them to be in good standing with the state, have a lease, that's about all that we require, and some kind of form of occupancy there so we can verify that they're in business there. Our team does spend a lot of time with them to make sure they're in good standing with the state. That is a heavy lift sometimes for our businesses, and it's not a hard, complicated process, but it's still, our team works over several months a year just to make sure businesses stay in good standing when they need these grants. And so given what we just heard from the Maryland Department of Transportation, we kind of see ourselves needing to continue doing that much more broadly for the businesses that would be able to receive the grant through the State Department, and so, or through the State Department of Transportation. So I'll stop there, but that is where we're at currently with the county's $900,000 for fiscal 25, and well, we look forward to working with the council and our partners to get the money out the door for the businesses in future fiscal years.
Appreciate that update, and you and your team walking the streets, knocking on doors and talking to business owners, hearing what they need. Another member of Montgomery County government who does that as well, Mr. Jacob Newman. I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add as Silver Spring Regional Services Director.
Well, I thought no prepared remarks, just, having watched the last session, want to echo your comments, Committee Chair, and Council President Stewart's comments as well, that it's been difficult for a myriad of reasons for businesses along Georgia and Bonifant and Long Branch as well. But I do want to appreciate the team that I've gotten to know here in with the various partners of Purple Line, and especially give a shout out to Carla Julian and her team, who have really been diligent and responsive when these issues do arise in communication and outreach. So, I'll kind of save some of the specific issues, but we'll certainly double down along Georgia Avenue, Bonifant, and Piney and Flower as areas of high concern for our businesses and residents.
Thank you. Turn it over now to the President and CEO of the Silver Spring Chamber of Commerce, who walks the streets as well and is in constant conversation with the business owners, Ms. Stephanie Helsing.
And probably the county council more than they would like. Thank you very much for inviting us today. I'm not necessarily sure what conversation took place before, but all I can do is really just concur with everyone else that, there are a number of stops along the way in the Purple Line in Silver Spring that have really had taken the brunt of a lot of this construction, and it's been really messy. It's been messy, it's been economically impactful, it's been demoralizing is a word that I would also use for a lot of the businesses, but also the community as well. So it's interesting because we have, as a member of the Chamber, the Bonifant, which is that lovely housing community on the corner next to the library. I think I hear from residents there just as much as I hear from businesses about the difficulties of traversing, this area that is just almost impassable still. Understanding that you've made lots of progress, so I don't want to discount that. I mean, I've definitely seen the progress, but it is ironic that everything from University all the way to Littonsville, realize, is where the business community that I actually represent is. So it's not just Bonifant that's feeling it. I've got businesses in Littonsville who are still dealing with the brunt of that every day, and where do people go, and the trucks and the noise and everything that goes along with it. There's one small sliver of community I would like to make mention of that I would like to see perhaps included in some of this grant, and that's a few small businesses that are being impacted by the closing of the Spring Street Bridge. There's Fenwick Beer and Wine. His sales, he's actually said, are down to when he just opened. So that's not fantastic. And it's because that juggernaut is shut off. And so for people to get to him, they literally have to go all the way down and around and through, and you can't take a left and you can't take a right and you can't get here and you can't get there. And so he, along with Beth Michaels Florist, which is the only florist that we actually have in downtown Silver Spring, and a really good taqueria next to them, have felt incredible impact from the closing of the bridge. This is definitely a little bit more temporary than the impact that businesses on Bonifant, Piney Branch, and Littonsville have felt, but it's no less important that we maybe think about sending some of that state love their way, because I think that they would appreciate it as well. And that's really it. I'm happy to answer any other questions, but what I'm just hearing on the daily basis is, Cafe has been very open about it, and she told me I could say it today. I was hoping that one of them would be able to come and join me just for the business persons in, firsthand experience, but I know you are very familiar with her. And she has said that if she did not have the location at the Wheaton Library, which is extremely profitable for them, and also now the Aquatic Center, which is growing, that they would have been closed. That is one of the oldest businesses in downtown Silver Spring. And it is a real shame that we have that kind of business that is being so negatively impacted by this. And the grants are very helpful, but they still don't necessarily take place of your business. So what I'd love to also see at the end of this, whenever this happens, is we need to throw them a big party. We need to have a party in Littonsville, we need to have a party in downtown Silver Spring on Bonifant, and we need to have something that happens over at University and Piney Branch to celebrate the fact that people can cross the street safely, they can see from one side of the street to the other, and that they are now going to be able to enjoy their community free of the chaos and the debris of construction. So
There's going to be a lot of celebrating when the purple.
there's going to be a lot of celebrating, trust me. It's going to be like 4th of July.
The DMV, but we'll make sure to celebrate at and with those businesses. And thank you for elevating Fenwick Beer and Wine and the others that might be off the beaten path from where the tracks actually are, but they are impacted nonetheless. So, and also just want to acknowledge Allie Williams, who is CEO of the Greater Bethesda Chamber, who was invited and is ill and so cannot participate today. And then lastly, Mr. Biggs, do you have anything else you want to add to this conversation at the front end?
I can just thank Assistant Secretary Jacqueline Hartman for all the work that they did to help push this grant program through today. And know that our business engagement teams, we mentioned earlier, is actively out there and coffee shop, particularly I go out there and have coffee. We're doing as much as we can to alleviate and make the access as accessible to the businesses on a day-to-day basis. As Doran mentioned, we're out there weekly taking a more personal approach in those areas to make sure that we try to keep the businesses alive there.
Thank you. And I'll just say that I appreciate the group of you all and those also who are fully engaged, recognizing we hear from a number of the businesses on a very frequent basis. Jackie Greenbaum, hello. We love you. And there are a lot of other businesses as well that are so busy working that they are unable to contact the chamber. They might not be partners with the chamber. They might not contact us or understand how best to navigate county government. And all of you collectively, we help find, identify, and provide support. That's why this is really important. Turn over to the co-chair.
Thank you. Appreciate all the updates. Can you be more specific with me and just tell me, besides the money that we're giving out, what other challenges are they facing that we should be aware of? Top 2 that you see going on.
Parking in parking. I think
Parking?
I'd
like to add parking.
So certainly, you know, Silver Spring has been in development and redevelopment for 20 years, and there's certain impacts of living under construction. I think that the layering of multiple projects and this wonderful light rail project, which will completely change how people access the downtown, it is taking a toll on businesses, whether it be street parking in front or access to the garage and timing. And this is something that the executive has been committed to and working with MCDOT as well. I think the second piece is really embedded in that. It is an active construction project, so whether it be traversing it or the noise, that's frequently what we hear. But for most businesses, it's about bottom line. And at the end of the day, what Stephanie has raised and others have raised is if you set up a business model predicated upon a certain amount of revenue and that's been cut in half or, you know, even more drastically, that is really at the forefront. I think they could live with the noise, they could live with traversing and, you know, circumnavigating to get to their doorstep if the numbers were making sense. And so the economic impact on those businesses and kind of the ecosystems of the communities, plural, in which they exist, it's hitting home. I did just want to take the opportunity to give one more shout out for folks who are in this conversation and at the table and working kind of on a macro level, not only now, but what comes next, thinking about small business anti-displacement and resident anti-displacement, and that would be the Purple Line Corridor Coalition out of the UMD. They've done some really fantastic work as well. Thank you.
Thank you for mentioning that. They're amazing. I was a teenager when I started talking about the Purple Line. I'm an old woman with kids at this point. Look forward to having the opening pretty soon. So thank you so much for all your work.
Can I just jump in as well? And so now if for anybody who's, I guess you saw pictures earlier of the downtown Bonifant area, you know, it's spilling over now also onto Georgia Avenue. So I do kind of want to remind people that while we're looking at specific areas that have been impacted unduly on a daily basis, we now are actually seeing a greater impact. So pretty much the center of downtown Silver Spring has, limited parking and limited accessibility. And if you have actually had to drive down Georgia Avenue, which I've tried to do a couple times just to kind of see what people are living through, just to drop my car off at Amico, I could crawl faster than I could drive there in either direction. And so when you start adding all this stuff up together, it really does, again, it impacts all the businesses. So I expect to hear from some of my Georgia Avenue businesses sooner than later about the impacts of the construction now with the moved traffic flow impacting them as well. I've heard from one, but I haven't heard from a lion's share yet, but just to kind of also put that out there.
Thank you, Council President.
Great. Well, thank you, Assistant Secretary. Thank you so much for being here. It has been a long time, as Council Chair Fanny Gonzalez said. I was sharing with Councilmember Balcom that my daughter's graduating from college this year, and all her friends were home from school over winter break, and they all said, I can't believe the Purple Line is still going on. They're like, this started when we were in middle school, and we lived through it in high school, and it's still not done. I'm trying to get my daughter to move back home, so could we, convince her that it will be done? So I just add that this will be, I think, very helpful to our businesses. I want to thank all the work that's been happening with the business on Bonifant and Piney Branch. It has really been a lifesaver for many of them to continue. I think the actual money is paramount and really important. And it's also important that they know that their government at the local and state level are hearing them and there to support them. And I think at this time, particularly for many of our small business owners who are folks who are also part of the immigrant community, that's really, really important that they get that strong message from the county and our state government. I did have a couple of questions on the eligibility. One was, I know, and I very much appreciate expanding it from the prior state money that was provided. One of the things is that we still have that the business had to have been in business prior to January 1st of 2022. For a number of our businesses in the downtown Silver Spring area, which we are so thankful for, that they have opened a business in the last few years, during COVID, right after COVID, they are feeling it as well. When we close the intersection that we talked about before on Wayne and Fenton, we have a brand new coffee shop, a restaurant that are literally will be their front doorstep right there. And we have a number of other businesses on Bonifant and other places that have opened since January 1st of 2022. And we're glad that they're surviving. They've become really a part of our fabric of our community. I don't know if there's any way of revisiting that or analyzing, at least then in the second round, if that could be expanded to businesses that have opened later than January 1st of 2022.
Yes, thank you for that question. So yes, we do have initial eligibilities based on kind of that January 1st, 2022 timeframe. Part of the thought process there is really to kind of recognize those businesses who have kind of been in this for the long haul. We do have the option to kind of modify this program as it progresses. So we're going to do 3 rounds of grants each year for 4 years. So I think, initially we want to target those businesses who have been at it the longest. But we are certainly open to, continuing the conversation with these great folks as well as with the council to understand how that program needs to evolve over time. Again, as the makeup of construction changes and as the makeup of just this project progresses, I'm sure this project or program will go through a couple iterations.
Great. I really appreciate that, because a lot of those, as you said before, prioritizing businesses that are anticipating some of the greatest impact or have been. Some of our newer businesses in the downtown area are going to feel it hard this summer. The other thing, and I know this is this is pretty standard language regarding sometimes businesses that are not covered, cannabis-based business, pawn shops, gun shops, massage parlors, adult entertainment, tanning salons, liquor stores, tattoo parlors, those are all excluded as well.
Correct.
And so just Fenwick beer and wine would not, I don't believe would be, oh, they're not liquor. So I guess that was a
Is there, I
clarification.
believe there's a differential, right? They're beer and wine, not liquor?
I guess those
Welcome
were
to
going to be.
Montgomery County.
So I guess.
Another conversation.
Right, and we don't necessarily have to have it here, but I do think that's going to be really important to understand. Cannabis is now legal, and so would they be excluded?
And there's actually another little beer and wine store in Long Branch that if beer and wine is also included, lumped into that liquor category, will not be able to be eligible for funding.
Yes, and other questions we have gotten is, what's the difference between like a spa and a massage parlor? We have a lot of spas versus, and so I've seen this language. I know we have a lot of places of what type of businesses are excluded, but I know we just launched the program today, but I think clarifying for some of our small businesses, and as we're doing outreach, who is included and who isn't, and if we need to revisit that a bit, that would be another area. So.
Okay, yes, happy to continue to work with the council and with others to make sure that's the right program for what the community needs.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. I really look forward to moving forward on this, and thank you for being here today.
Good clarifying questions. Councilmember Sells.
I share the sentiments and thank everyone for being here to discuss the purple line. I'll start with MTA. Based on the update that was included from January 2025, it stated that the project is 74.2% complete. I don't know how we arrived at that percentage, but I'll quote the report. Is that keeping us on track with the promised winter 2027 opening?
So before you do, I just want to say affirmatively yes.
All right, I love it.
27.
Okay.
Yes, so we're on track for the opening of late 2027, and that's what some of the details we went over earlier for the Purple Line. That 74.2% comes from the JCR, and it's a detailed way of how we calculate the overall progress of all the different components that go into it. And if you want some more details, we can give you some more details on how we calculate that piece. But it's an overall project percent complete, not just a construction complete piece for that.
So we should be cutting the ribbon 2027 in the winter?
Yes.
All right, thank you. I don't know if our chamber can answer this, or Jean, but did all impacted businesses that were eligible for and applied for financial assistance opportunities receive the assistance? And if not, do we know how many were denied and what other ways these businesses are being supported?
Thanks. So I do not have the numbers of denials, but I will tell you all the businesses along Bonifant Street that the executive targeted and all the ones on Piney Branch did get a notice that they were able to receive this funding. The only ones that did not receive it is they were unable to become in good standing with the state, despite our efforts to help them. They chose not to file. They said they didn't want to do that, so they elected not to meet that criteria. But I do not have those specific numbers in front of me right now, and I can share them with you later.
Thank you. Okay. And then, is there any data available on the number of businesses that have closed along the Purple Line since construction has started? And what we're doing in the interim to fill those vacant storefronts, recoup those jobs?
So no, for the business center, we were talking about the Purple Line being started much sooner than we did. I do not have a list of businesses that have closed since the Purple Line started. I do know that a lot of businesses, and Council President Stewart just mentioned this in her remarks, we've met a lot of businesses that have opened along Bonifant. So I know those spaces are being filled, and for at least the county's grant, they are eligible for that as long as they are in business more recently. But no, I do not have a list, and I'm not sure. I'll look to the others here, but the county does not have a list of closing businesses.
Okay. Any vacant storefronts that we are seeing?
I mean, I would just share that, along with many others here at this table, we're, consistently working together and with those major either developers or property management companies to talk about retail vacancy and commercial vacancy, particular to the downtown and then along the corridor. And once again, a plug for the Purple Line Corridor Coalition. They are looking a bit deeper from an anti-displacement lens at perhaps some of those who are not able to make it through, and also what happens next at a look at legacy businesses. So we've, there are a lot of different conversations around this, and certainly we remain at the forefront, door knocking when it's needed, and just generally checking in to try and triage when a business is approaching that point of no longer being sustainable, to think about outside the box. What else is there? Marketing, promotion, connectivity, peer support that would keep them in their rental space.
You asked about vacancies. I was actually at the Bethesda station this morning, right before this meeting, meeting with the team out there, and they were talking about businesses that they were working with to get into the new buildings that are being built right at the Bethesda station. So it's actually encouraging some economic development over in that area and some reopening of some businesses. I think it's a French restaurant right there at Bethesda Road that's reopening soon. That's right at the Purple Line station.
Oh, good. That brings me to my next question. Because studies have shown that residential rents have increased by 25 to 30 to 50% in anticipation of the Purple Line completion. However, given that commercial leases tend to be longer, we don't have the same data on commercial leases and increases. Are we collecting any data on those increases over the next 5 years? If we heard from any businesses?
So for the Purple Line grants that we're administering, the lease is part of the requirements for us. So we are tracking those for the businesses specifically along that part of the corridor, but it's not broadly for the whole area along the corridor.
Okay. And then, Stephanie, were you going to say something?
I was just going to share, anecdotally what we hear for reasons that businesses are closing, or a myriad of what we've discussed before, but also increased rents. And so, it's often hard to parse out exactly what was that thing.
Yeah.
But in terms of actually tracking when somebody moves out in the new rental, no, there's access to CoStar data, but not consolidated in I think what you're asking.
Yes.
And that's not anything the chamber tracks, other than hearing that, we just couldn't afford it. It was too expensive, or we're relocating. And often when I hear that, it's to PG County or to Howard. So, but again, I think it's a perfect storm sometimes for some of our smaller restaurants that have actually closed, where I think increases in rent, the Purple Line continuation, the construction, the lack of foot traffic, I think that it all does kind of add up. But other than on the direct Bonifant corridor, I know we have a 3 or 4 storefronts right on Georgia Avenue between Spring and Wayne Avenue that have turned over fairly recently, but I don't know the reason for it. So.
And then just one final question. I know that impacted businesses need time to reestablish their presence in the community and to attract customers, to reestablish their business traffic before the construction. Are we thinking about ways to assist businesses with marketing, or how we're going to increase foot traffic?
I think I'm starting over here only because I'm on the left. I think that's a all hands on deck reality of the chambers, of the regional centers, of our state partners. I think earlier we were talking about throwing a party.
Yep.
But I will say, we did mention last week during the Economic Development Committee when the Business Center was here, it's not just in Silver Spring. A lot of our businesses are talking about sales, marketing, issues related to that. And so at least more globally, the Business Center is looking at how do we provide that support for our smaller businesses. But I think for this, it's a matter of how do we pop the champagne cork when the time comes to really market that space so that foot traffic picks up again.
And I think I'm going to give a shout out to Jacob and his team over at the Regional Services Center, who already does a really good job covering the businesses and promoting the businesses and, you know, making sure that people are aware of what is happening in Silver Spring. And the Chamber does that for the Chamber businesses that it can, the Chamber businesses that it represents. But we're a little bit more open now than we used to be, and so hopefully we will be able to kind of do something more collaborative, which will have a bigger impact. Because I do think that that's going to be a challenge, is getting people back to Silver Spring, because there are some deep scars from just traveling and trying to walk downtown sometimes, and I, you know, there's no other word for me to use. There's no other language. We can't really pussyfoot around it. It is really the reality of it, and it's just been particularly brutal for that stretch of Piney Branch and that stretch of Bonifant, unlike anywhere else on the track. You know, and again, being our minority majority business owners, you know, we want to make sure that their needs are being met, and sometimes they're not necessarily going to want to follow the protocol of what needs to be done for various reasons. And so even trying to make sure we're paying attention to those businesses too, to ensure that they are also being supported, even if they can't access grants for whatever reason.
Yeah, and I think now that we have the contact information, the languages that are being spoken in these small businesses, if we can somehow survey some of those needs that aren't tied to the financial resources they may not qualify for, it's helpful for us to know about that as well, so we can support. All right.
Do you mind if I just add in there? I'm sorry.
Please.
So Ray and his team have been doing a lot of business engagement as well. We have a list of over 800, I believe, small businesses along the entire Purple Line alignment, just to make sure that there's a directory of those resources so people know that they're there and try to send business their way. We also do some business spotlights in the Purple Line monthly newsletter, just to kind of, again, highlight what businesses are there. In terms of the grant program, we have also made an eligible use of that grant program, kind of the idea of advertising and marketing and business support generally. So we'll have to figure out exactly how that looks and how that helps best. But I think in terms of, you know, once we get to opening, there's been some discussion of, you know, whether there's maps to make sure that that are distributed to riders to make sure that they know what businesses are along the alignment. So don't just, you know, ride through, stop and visit the businesses along the alignment. And so we're happy to continue to partner with our county partners there, as well as the council, to make sure that you know, the grant program isn't primarily focused on the businesses themselves in terms of financial support, but it really is intended to be that advertising and marketing piece as well, of just how do you also you know, give them the tools to kind of longer term, make sure that people know that they're there, what they do, and how they can access their services.
Good. I'll be reaching out for some links to include in my newsletter. Thank you, everyone.
I know we're tight on time. I would get in big trouble if I didn't mention a few things really quickly, just very focused efforts we've been, you know, working on in Silver Spring. Follow us on Instagram, Silver Spring, right? Follow the newsletter. Recently overhauled website, silverspringdowntown.com. And so it's very much a collaborative approach, again, with folks at this table and those in the community. For over a year, we've been meeting with the marketing minds of Silver Spring, small businesses, flagships institutions like the AFI and the Fillmore and Peterson Development, to really push strategic marketing goals so that everyone is in alignment and can talk about the great things that our downtown has to offer. And of course, this is complemented in some of the neighborhoods by an initiative that you all are well familiar with. There's the emerging business districts, and then there are also our place-based management initiatives. And so utilizing those who are working very heavily in community, such as MHP and the Long Branch community with the Long Branch Business League, it really works, again, for those same businesses that are impacted relative to Purple Line, but really on a much broader scope. To elevate voice of the small businesses and community members and wonderful initiatives that Parks works on, and it works together in an ecosystem. So thank you.
Thank you again. And I would also include Source of the Spring. I've found out about some really good businesses opening as well. Thank you.
Thank you. A lot of the focus here has been on Silver Spring and Long Branch and some of those emerging areas, but also just want to make sure on the record that Bethesda and Elm Street are also eligible for these grants, right?
Yeah, Yes, the state program is the entire purple line alignment.
Good, just to get it on the record. Thank you. Councilmember Balcom.
Thank you. The councilperson should have shown up.
So my first question was going to be when, so I'm so happy that we know that answer, and that answer is today. So that's great. I do want to just agree with the council president in terms of the criteria being the date of when the business had to exist. We ran into this same issue when we were working with COVID funding, and it was restricted to people who were in place prior to the start of the pandemic. The difficulty there is businesses open and close every day. There's a business cycle, and they open for many reasons and close for many reasons. And if we aren't supporting businesses that are brand new and opening, we're going to end up with an unnatural gap in businesses. So I just urge you to consider that, because they took a chance to open their business, and they're going to need support too. So just want to mention that for the next year criteria. And then I also want to talk about communication. We've got such a great team of boots on the ground, and it's going to be hard to imagine that a business isn't going to know that they can that they're eligible for this. But it happens all the time, right? We have great resources, and people find out about it way too late. And 6 weeks it's great that it's a short time frame, because then people can get money quicker. The flip side is, what that means is that the communication strategies need to happen immediately to make sure that all eligible businesses are aware of it, and some may need help in support in filling that out. And I'm looking at Stephanie and Jacob in terms of having that support. And so I think that's important to do. Just one question is so there's a small overlap between the timing of when the county funding is still available and the state funding. Is there, will you take into consideration, will businesses get dinged if they're getting county funding?
No, so we are making our award decisions kind of independent of the county programs that are existing.
Okay.
So it would be possible to get an award from both programs.
Super, thanks. Wanted to clarify that. And then completely off topic, but it perked my ears. The work that you're doing to help people remain in good standing with the state, I think that's something that I would love to see the Business Center do, just as a general educational system, because so many businesses fall down on making sure they're in good standing. So I'm sure you have lessons learned to kind of roll that out countywide. Would be great. Thank you.
No, for the record, that was a thumbs up.
Okay, sorry, on it.
Good. This is a really helpful conversation. Good to start with the high-level mark of the state's commitment to support the small businesses throughout the entirety of this corridor. And as we work towards the other milestones of the Capitol Crescent Trail opening in the spring of 2026 and the Purple Line opening in the winter of 2027, they are still a little ways away, and there's a lot more work to do to keep our residents and pedestrians and drivers safe, to keep our businesses open and flourishing. And I'm glad to know that the county, the state, and our for-profit business partners are working together to make this happen. And I look forward to the continuation of this discussion. And more importantly, look forward to everyone flooding social media and their emails, their email announcements with all of this, because when does the date close? March 15th or so? I think that's it. It's soon.
It is.
Make me look that one up real quick. March 14th.
March
The
14th.
applications are due by. and the awards will be announced on April 14th.
Okay, so we all have our work cut out for us over the next 4 weeks or so to get this information out there through any means necessary. Thank you, everybody. With that, we'll get back to work. We're adjourned.
AM on the US 29 corridor and on County Cable Montgomery.